when I'm not really reconsidering the $10 a month I give to Photoshop after using their generative AI fill tool to help me with my Christmas card this year, I like to answer questions and comments that you get on YouTube, so let's get to it. Damn, the B string saved the empire. So today we're talking about the B string and how it messes everything up and makes everything awful, but it's also probably the best thing that ever happened to guitar, okay? So let's start from the beginning. A guitar is tuned to fourths except for the B string. What that means is E, A, D, G, B, E is standard tuning for a guitar, right? You probably know that. It being tuned to fourths is what makes it a little interesting. All that means is every next string is going to be a fourth higher in its major scale. So like E, F, G, A, right? E goes to A, B, C, D, A goes to D, D, E, F, G, D goes to G, G, A, B, C, right? So if we kept going in fourths, the B string would actually be a C string, okay? So that B string is actually a third, G, A, B. It's a third of B, and then after that, B, C, D, E. It goes back to fourths, right? So what that means is every cool little shape that you do, like every riff that you do, you have to compensate for the B string going one extra note. Another easier way to explain that is like when you're tuning a guitar to itself, it's like the 5th fret is the next string until you get to the G string, and then you have to use the 4th fret to tune the next string down, right? So basically this came from like Baroque lute playing, which I guess you could consider as like the predecessor to guitar. And the reason that they did this is kind of interesting. Now, it's not like there's one big meeting where they're like, this is going to be standard tuning for a guitar, guys. But let's think about this and why standard tuning is actually the best thing to do it. And let's talk about some cool different practices that you could do to maybe help yourself out for the slight disadvantages of the B string being different than the other strings, okay? And again, I say it's tuned to fourths, whereas like a violin, a bass, like a stand-up cello or whatever, those are all tuned to fifths, right? Just kind of like a difference, even though, you know, they're both similar stringed instruments, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But let's talk about why this is actually, I think, the most superior method first, okay? So what we have is we have a low E and a high E. All the other notes are different notes, right? E, A, D, G, B, E, okay? So one thing that's kind of interesting is if you think about it, it's like, all right, what if we made a scale out of these notes? If we started with, you know, let's start with an E and then just went like in order. Well, it would be a E, a G, an A, a B, and a D. And again, the same notes as the open strings, just in order, okay? So if we look at that, we've like, all right, we got this E, and then the next one we said the next highest one would be G, right? We have a G string, but if we just played it on the next side, it'd be right there, E to G. Then we have an A and a B. Then we have a D and an E. Guess what? Your guitar is tuned to E minor pentatonic, right? That's kind of an interesting way to look at it that maybe not a lot of people have seen before, right? E, G, A, B, D, E, also known as G major pentatonic, but because, you know, we start and we end on an E, it would make sense to think of a guitar being tuned to E minor pentatonic, okay? Now, what this proves first and foremost is that G major E minor is the people's key. This is proof that it's the people's key, because why would you tune this to that, right? Now, the other question you might ask yourself is like, well, even just standard tuning is like, when you play it open, it doesn't really sound like anything. It's just, you know, it's 5 different notes, whereas maybe like a prettier tuning, something like Dadgad, sounds great, just open, and or barred or something like that, right? Again, I think the Dadgad is probably like the prettiest tuning, but this is really the most, I think just the best tuning, all right? Now, why that is and why it's important, they're like, okay, well, a minor pentatonic key or a pentatonic scale is tuned into the open strings. Why that's important is because let's think about this, right? So there are 7 notes in a key, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Doesn't matter what key you're in, whether you're in, you know, C major, F sharp major, whatever, right? There are 7 different notes. Now, what's interesting is, like, if you learn a little bit more music theory, like the circle of fifths, stuff like that, you'll know that the closest one key can be to another key is having 6 of the same notes and 1 note different. For example, the key of C major, the notes are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. G major would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So they're essentially the same key, but G has an F sharp and C has an F natural in it, right? So they have 6 of the same 7 notes. Now, if we were to continue to tune this entire guitar in fourths all the way through, when we get to G, instead of a B string being next, we'd have a G, A, B, C. We'd have a C string next. You can tune your guitar like that if you want to, just to kind of see if that's a better tuning for you. It won't be. And then the next string there would be a fourth from C, C, D, E, F. So if we wanted to keep it uniform all the way through E, A, D, G, C, F, you'll notice we have 6 different strings, 6 different notes in the open tunings. Now those 6 notes would only exist in 2 keys, and this is where I think the real genius of standard tuning comes in, is because having 5 different notes instead of 6 different notes actually allows all the open strings to exist in 3 different keys, okay? Just like E minor pentatonic actually exists in 3 different keys, right? So the keys that the notes E, A, D, G, B, and E all exist in are the key of C major, the key of G major, and the key of D major. C, G, and D, right? Now, what's interesting about that? Those are probably the 3 most popular keys. So by having the open strings be very useful and helpful notes, we have essentially taken all the chords from those 3 keys and then made them much easier to play with open chord shapes, where, you know, you maybe do cowboy chords. Like all the chords in the key of G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp half diminished, and G. Now you'll notice you do have to kind of close voice some of them, like a B minor chord, something like that. But it really lends itself to being able to play another key. All the chords in C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B minor 7 flat 5, C major, the key of D, D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, C sharp minor 7 flat 5, D. Either way, those 3 keys have the greatest hits of all their chords allowed to be played with open strings, to not have to do bar chords or closed voicing chords. So, again, this all came from like the Baroque lute, apparently, in my 2 full minutes of internet research that I did for this video, aside from just intuitively understanding why, you know, playing guitar for 20 years, why this is actually pretty helpful when you think about it, along with experimenting with different open chord voicings and stuff like that. It's actually pretty genius that, you know, by doubling the low and the high string, you get some advantages like the bar chords having the melody on top and the bass note on the bottom, which is very helpful in kind of getting like a fuller, more mature sound than maybe like an old school lute would give. But the whole premise is this was really just something that was created to make a guitar something that would be the perfect accompaniment instrument, which I do believe that it is more than any other instrument that exists on Earth. I think it's the perfect thing to accompany a human vocal, or even just other notes just playing like melodies alongside with it, right? Now the disadvantages is if you're using it as a lead instrument, some of the visual shapes can get a little bit warped, right? Like when you do a line like this, like I want to do this cool, like, I want to do that riff, but that I start on A, I do like this. And I do this thing that's evenly spaced with all the different strings, right? I want to be able to move that, and then I want to start it, maybe I want to start here. It doesn't work anymore. Now I have to compensate for that. So all my visual shapes kind of get messed up. So that is a disadvantage, whereas maybe like an extended range instrument, like a 7-string guitar, you'd add a low B, and then those shapes kind of repeat until you get to the high B, right? And even baritone guitars, they have that same idea, but still has that third tuned into the tuning of it. One cool thing to maybe practice is to take a riff and then to do it, but just get used to the idea of the spacing between it. What I mean by that is like, this is a really great one right here, that right there where I slide into a root note, go a minor third, and then just end up here. So this would be a 5E, 3, 5, 7, 5 octave, right? which is essentially the minor pentatonic scale, but played with a little panache. And then when you do it maybe somewhere else, you can kind of see how I'm doing it here. Now I'm right there. There's my A. 7 on the D string. 5, 7, 9. And instead of going here, just go middle finger, okay? And that spacing right there where you slide with that ring finger into a lead note, and then having your middle finger grab that, what is now a minor third, between the G and the B string, that's a great way to practice it. And then get your pinky. And then you kind of go back and forth, right? So I do think that for me personally, it just became a feel like no matter what key I was in, when I got to that B string, you just train your muscle memory to get that middle finger in there instead of that pointer finger in there. So again, this is kind of like one quick tip that you could do, but I think more than anything else is just understanding that, the reason this was like made to be standard tuning is just because it helps accompany. And then when you think about like lead playing or melodies, just maybe be like, all right, I just need to compensate. I need to add one to the B string, and I need to make that part of a bigger visual shape than maybe just taking the shortcut of repeating smaller shapes all throughout the fretboard, which has a lot of merit, and it's something that I teach all the time because it's something that it really helped me out a lot. But that's just one way around the B string. But hopefully that sheds some light on why the B string is such actually kind of like a pain, but is really better for you in the long run. And I hope I made a good argument for standard tuning. Shame on you, a couple of white guys saying the blues is simple. It's not about the form, it's about the soul, and you have none. Man, I really wish I got more salty blues comment. Like, there's nothing puts me in the hottest spirit more than just people just dunking on other instructors trying to teach the blues and saying that it's not about the form, it's about the soul. So again, sliding into 2024, I'm going to really work on trying to find the blues deep in my heart. So if you have any tips and pointers for that, I would love to hear them. Thank you very much. Hey Sean, my grandson is interested in getting into audio recording. He's 16. What software do you recommend? Thanks and happy holidays. So I'm a huge fan of Logic. Again, the downside of that is it's only on Apple products, but I think Logic is the most accessible. You can actually customize it to where it's very easy to use, or you can have it be the most advanced thing, do Dolby Atmos surround mixing in it. I know several high-level professionals that use Logic, so there's no ceiling on it. You can do whatever you want. I will say either Logic or I know a lot of people use Ableton, especially if they're on PC. I mean, Apple people too, but Ableton's another big one. I do think they all kind of come down to the same thing. Studio One with PreSonus is another really great one. So yeah, I haven't really used Pro Tools a whole lot in the last decade. I started on Pro Tools and it was fine. But again, I'm just a Logic guy. I've messed with Studio. I did a video with Studio One maybe like a month or two ago, and that was really cool. So yeah, I would say Logic, then Studio One, Ableton, depending on what they want to do. If they want to do like, DJ, looper, EDM stuff, Ableton is definitely the one that I feel most people use. But I think Logic is just such a great value if you have Apple products that you should look into that. Otherwise, maybe check out Studio One. Again, electronic stuff, Ableton, just have fun with it. They're all pretty much the same. All right, listening homework. I'm going to just link you to my most listened to song of the year from Spotify Wrapped, which is always interesting to kind of see what I've been listening to via my playlists and stuff. Big Thief, Paul, just classic song. I might have even recommended it several years ago, but again, this is the song that allegedly, according to Spotify, I listen to more than anything else. Great song from a great band. Have a happy new year to everybody out there watching. Another great year has gone by. Maybe I'll do some kind of recap live thing closer to New Year's Eve or whatever. But anyways, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, hit me in the comment section, Instagram, or the website, and I'll talk to you all soon.